Welcome back to the Following Films podcast. We've all spent time in the healthcare system, whether it's sitting in a sterile waiting room or trying to navigate a bureaucratic nightmare for a loved one. It's a system run by people who are constantly expected to be flawless, even when they're completely running on empty. And that brings us to today's film, Do No Harm. The movie follows Sam Yeong, a home health nurse who's already burnt out to the point of collapse. In his exhaustion, he makes a single mistake, administering what might be a fatal dose of medication to a young patient. Instead of a clean medical drama where everything gets wrapped up with a nice moral lesson, the story spirals over 24 hours as Sam tries to cover his tracks while colliding head-on with the grieving father. It's a tense, deeply uncomfortable look at moral injury, institutional pressure, and what happens when the people we expect to save us simply break under the weight. I sat down with writer-director Chris Hartwell to talk about how this whole project came together. Chris has deep family roots in the medical world. His dad is a doctor, and his wife is a home health nurse, so he's been listening to these ground-level stories for years. It took him nearly a decade to get this made, pulling together a low-budget, highly collaborative production that involved everyone from industry vets to his own film students. We talk about turning those real-life systemic pressures into a legit thriller, the nightmare of human error, and what it actually takes to drag an independent feature across the finish line these days. Before we jump into the conversation, do me a quick favor. If you like what we're doing here, take 10 seconds to subscribe to the podcast. Drop us a rating or review on whatever platform you're using, and share the episode with a friend who loves indie cinema. It really helps to keep the lights on and get these films in front of more people. Here's my chat with Chris Hartwell. I had a chance to watch a film last night, and I really enjoyed it, but I wanted to, it's tough to talk about right now, the specifics of the film, because you're kind of in this place of releasing it that's highly unusual. So I was wondering if we could just start by talking a little bit about where the idea of the film came from, your release schedule, and then we'll get into a little bit of the film that just to maybe get people interested. I think this is a hell of a film that people will enjoy.
Thanks, bro. That means a lot. It means a lot. It's funny to be at this point in the process, if only just because the film has lived up here and in here, and then, on my own computer for so very long, and getting to finally share it with people and having people respond as positively as they have has been such a gift and such a reward. The film, as I like to say, and this sounds a little hyperbolic, but it's not, I've kind of been writing it my entire life. Sure. My dad is a doctor, and so, as you would imagine, he has, over the years, brought home so many compelling and fascinating and dramatic and sometimes hilarious stories from his job in healthcare. And then I married a home health nurse, and we've been married now for a little over 10 years. And even during our dating relationship, my wife, Marla, would very similarly bring home a lot of very fascinating stories. And the really unique thing about her job is you are not only seeing people on potentially one of the worst days of their life, you're walking into their life, into their home, and you get a front row look at so many different individuals and so many different walks of life and so many different socioeconomic classes, if you will. And sure. It's again, the stories themselves are oftentimes stranger than fiction, and just riveting. So as a storyteller, I was always more than happy to sit down and listen to whatever it was that my wife experienced on that particular day, and kind of just subconsciously make a note of it, not really knowing if ever, I would end up telling a story about these things or turn them into a film. And so when this idea came to me and I actually started writing this project, in a lot of ways, the film sort of, as I like to say, just fell out of me because I had been kind of percolating on and gestating on these ideas for so very long.
And then the idea of putting this together, though, and telling this story, which is hyper specific, but something that I think a lot of people will be able to see themselves in. The idea, because this is, yes, it's about a home health nurse who is buried in their work and their personal
Mhm.
life and their finances, and everything is overwhelming them. And I think that this is a very universal story right now. While very specific, I feel like a lot of people will be able to relate to the details of this.
No, I really hope so. And I will say, I personally am not in healthcare. I'm a
Right.
filmmaker and a professor. But the central idea of this story and the central conflict where this home health nurse realizes that he's made this mistake, and we kind of follow him on these 24 hours of hell as he tries to figure out, what do I do? How do I hold my life together? Do I redirect blame? Do I run? Do I hide? I think that, just like you said, is something that is very universal because we've all made a mistake, whether small or large. We've all come to the end of ourselves where we realize that despite our best efforts, despite how put together we might be on a normal day, there's always a day when the wheels come off the train and we can't hold it together any longer, and presents to the world the image of ourselves that we so desperately want to. And I think that's very universal. And for me, about 8 years ago when I started writing this, I was in a really hard place personally, and trying to figure out how to work through a couple of things. And that's really where that kind of central conflict came from. That very kind of personal struggle that I was enduring. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that would be my hope. Absolutely, that yes, it resonates with those in healthcare. And it has been so rewarding talking to a number of people in healthcare, nurses and doctors who have seen the film, and they go, "Oh man, like you captured so well the pressure that we endure." The hope it would be it would extend beyond that, right? And those that aren't even in healthcare would still be able to go, "Oh, yes, I know that feeling in my own job and my own personal life," and have that sort of effect on everyone.
And you show that pressure in non-literal ways at
Mm,
times, in ways that are they capture the emotion instead of
mm,
the reality of what it looks like, and
mm.
things that are impressionistic, for lack of a
Yeah,
better word, in the way you do
yeah.
it. And those are the moments that I think really clicked in for me, that it was
Mm,
that I just felt like I was in very competent hands at this point, and I need to just give myself over to the film.
mm,
I watch a lot of independent movies, and there's a little asterisk that you have to put after it. It's like, I know they made this for $10,000. It was shot on
yeah,
my iPhone. It was done
yeah,
over 5 years on weekends. You can feel their hearts in it, and it's just, I
yeah,
love that, and I can appreciate the audacity of people just waking up and saying, we're going to go make a thing. And I love that. This
yeah.
is not one of those films. I don't have to put an asterisk. There's no caveat.
Mm.
This is just a good movie. And it is executed at a level that you would see on a studio film. And it's very surprising to see something this well made for what I assume is very little.
Yes, well, that means the world, Chris. Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, and people oftentimes, this is not an original concept, but people oftentimes talk about, when approaching art of any kind, you have kind of three categories that you can consider. You can make something good, you can make something quickly, or you can make it cheap. And you can do two of those. You can make it good
Yeah.
and it's cheap, but then you won't make it quickly. You can make it quickly and cheap, but then it won't be good, right? And so in this particular instance, there was one of those categories kind of locked in for us, which is we kind of had to make it cheap. We had somewhat of a budget, but not
Yeah.
the kind of budget that you'd really want, right? So that was locked in. And then the other thing that I absolutely was unwavering on is I wanted this to be as good as it could be. I didn't want people having to kind of give it that little asterisk. To use your analogy, I love that. I wanted people just to be able to settle into the story, and so that meant that I was not going to be able to make it quickly. I mentioned that I came up with this idea 8 years ago,
Right.
and haven't been sitting around for 7.5 years, and then sprinted through 6 months of production and post production. Like, it has been 8 years of doing something on this project. So, then that manifested itself when we had a proof of concept all the way back in 2019, and took that around to festivals, and that was helpful in getting the financing for the feature film. then the runway of pre-producing the feature film, not being able to bring on professionals to location scout and to cast.
Yeah.
You know, I was kind of single-handedly sifting through 10,000 submissions when it came to the actors, and I was driving all around Houston where we were shooting to find these locations and form these long-term relationships with these business owners and landowners so that we could shoot on their property for little to nothing. And normally things that you would want to, if you could, just offload onto other competent professionals. I was like, all
Right.
right, I guess this is I guess this is how I'm spending the next year. So yeah, it was a labor of love. It was a lot of passion, but it was also kind of this unwavering commitments to making it all that it could be, quality wise. And then also, I've been making projects since I was a wee lad, and so kind of the DIY filmmaker in me had learned just enough tricks, I think,
Hmm.
to put something on screen that wouldn't pull you out of it, that wouldn't bump you as much as it might or could have. And a lot of that came down to, all right, let's not, as much as we can, attempt something either creatively or technically that will, show the lack of budget. And so kind of the mandate that I gave to Paul, my cinematographer, was like, all right, let's make sure we master, to use a dancing metaphor, the step touch. Let's keep it simple, so no one would maybe know that we can't do some sort of fancy, twist or spin on the dance floor. But if we can, in every single scene, give one little fancy twirl, one little fancy spin. So we're always giving the audience something to sink their teeth into, something to go, ooh, that was different. Oh, that was
Hmm.
interesting. And that was really kind of the balancing act that we tried to ride throughout the entire film. Competent filmmaking with just enough of that seasoning, to hopefully give you something to go, ooh, that's interesting. Ooh, that's different. Oh, I hadn't expected that kind of, camera move or that kind of use of lighting or that kind of use of sound design to be present in a film of this scale. So,
Well, there's a specific moment in the film. It's not giving anything away, but there's a war story that's told, and the way that you cut through that, it has the way that you're changing lighting in it. It's actually something that I've seen in theater a couple times, but you don't see it used in film, and it's something that's very basic but super effective and gives the illusion of something. At least I'm assuming in the way that
yep.
was executed, that's
Yes.
actually it's practical the way that's happening, but it feels like you're intercutting when you're not. Is that how that was put together?
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Okay.
there's a couple of moments, well, three moments kind of that are peppered throughout the film where the main character is recounting a war story, an experience he had in the past with another patient, and wanting to allow the audience to, in this kind of very expressionistic way, kind of journey into the character's mind. I wanted to do something a bit more theatrical in those moments, and make it a much more subjective moment. And so one of the ideas that Paul, my cinematographer, and I came up with was let's just embrace something that feels, to use your words exactly, very theatrical. And so, kind of just it was a lot of fun kind of finding that in these locations, because the locations themselves were real. We were shooting these real trailers, these real houses, and so you have the groundedness, the reality of those real locations, but laid on top of that, kind of this theatrical lighting. And again, that was just our way of trying to give the audience just a little extra spice, something that was visually interesting. And it was one of the things too that I talked a lot with Harry, our leading actor, about very early on in the process, which was like, well, how is this going to distinguish itself from every other indie film out there? And unfortunately, I'd already had a lot of thoughts in line with this, and he was very excited that we were kind of trying and attempting these particular ideas, that were a little more theatrical, that were a little more heightened, because I think very much he was very astute in his thought process there. That, yeah, people have seen, the indie film, the kind of the grungy, grounded, naturalistic look. And I'm not saying that that's not appropriate in a lot of films, but we wanted to, again, try and give the audience something unique, something different that they could go, ooh, that's fun. I want to write home about that.
Well, there's the audience has gotten far more sophisticated than they were even 5 or 10 years ago. You look at conversations that are happening around film stock now that are
Yeah.
commonplace and presentation. And it's wildly different to see the kind of the kids and the way they view film now. It's not just the geeks in the back of the,
Yep.
in the AV room that are thinking about those things. It's very mainstream to think about film in that way. But I think the most important part is really to allow room for performance. And if the peppering, if the style gets in the way of that, then it's a distraction. I think people will watch your film and they might not even notice that it's there, but they appreciate it. It's those things that are invisible that it's like good editing, you don't notice. It's that kind of thing. When you have good cinematography, you really shouldn't notice it for the most part. Otherwise, it was just somebody kind of showing themselves off to that degree. Right. And I don't feel like you get into, for lack of a better term, visual masturbation in this film, where it's just showing that kind of like self fulfilling kind of thing, self gratification or other. So, but a specific question though about the timing of the film. You were mentioning this is 2018, you're getting this rolling, and then 2019, and then we have a global pandemic that affects nurses and healthcare providers as much as anyone else. And in a way, we kind of, I think, reassessed our relationship with those professions in a lot of ways, but I feel that slipping away. And I'm glad that this is kind of, to me, this feels like something that picks up that conversation in a way. You look at there's a scene where a nurse is getting yelled at, a doctor is getting yelled at, and it's commonplace for people to forget that these are people that are working 70, 80 hours a week, and they are burnt at both ends. And we need to treat them with compassion the way that we hope to be treated with compassion as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's great. And so good to hear. And it was very unique. There was, just like you said, a period in which this project was being worked on and developed before the whole world got turned upside down by COVID. And when that came along, there were a number of drafts that really directly took that on. And the main character, as well as a number of the characters, were masked and referring to COVID and the pandemic. And there's just the lightest touch of that still that remains in the finished version. But just because of the way things timed out, we ultimately kind of pulled back on that, trying to make it just that much more kind of undated or timeless, so to speak. Sure. But also, I think it could and should, and it's good to hear that it is, carrying some of the weight of that season, which was incredibly weighty for everyone, especially healthcare professionals. And that, kind of like in shows like The Pit, you can feel the residue of that season of our existence, kind of being carried by these that are these individuals that are expected to do so much for their patients, and so often are not given the space to think about, well, what do I need to remain healthy, and that makes sense. It makes sense when the world's on fire and you're the person who's kind of expected to put it out, to set aside your own needs and your own the things that really ensure that you are functioning in the ways that you need to. The unfortunate truth is obviously that can affect others, but can affect you in really detrimental ways, if you're not able to take that breath and step back for a moment and go, where am I at? What do I need? Am I overstretching myself, and giving more than I can ultimately give?
Well, I don't think as a society we've done nearly enough self-reflection about what that couple years period did to us. I have a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old, and how did that impact a kid that was in kindergarten when he was doing virtual learning? And how did that impact somebody that was in middle school that was just, going through puberty? And what was that time like? And what did that do to them psychologically? Us, we probably bounced back a little bit better, but I don't even know how that impacted us really, because we haven't taken the time to kind of look at us and say, okay, how were we before? How are we now? What has changed? What do we need to do differently? Not just from a government standpoint around how any of that nonsense, that's not for me to figure out. I don't worry about that too much, but my personal reaction to these things, how could I take a mental inventory and do a better job during that? And I think we need to do that because we all got pretty messed up by that period. And I don't think we've done enough self-examination yet.
100%. Yeah. And teaching at the collegiate level, I can tell you the kind of student that I have in my class now does feel very different to the kind of students that I had prior to 2020. And there's a variety of reasons for that. I don't think COVID's the only culprit, but I absolutely think it plays into how they're learning, how they feel about the future, their level of optimism or lack thereof. And I would hope that any piece of art, any stories that we're telling are helping us make that much more sense of the world around us and make that much more sense of the world in our own hearts and the world that's in our own minds. And so, in a lot of ways, a film like Do No Harm, while this character really does go through a very harrowing experience and make some unfortunate decisions along the way. My hope is that as you see him begin to turn over a new page, begin to turn a corner, that you're given even just a glimpse at what health can look like, what introspection can lead to, what even just the simple act of saying, "Hey, I'm not okay," can lead
Yeah.
to, and even if that's just admitting something as simple as, "Hey, I have problems. I'm a smoker," like like he
Yeah.
does in the film, rather than just pretending that that's not a thing. And no, 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 yeah, yeah, I'm a healthcare provider. I don't have unhealthy habits that need to be assessed. And so yeah, yeah. I would love to hear that someone in watching Do No Harm was just able to go, yeah, it made me pause for a moment and ask myself, what's going on in here? What's going on up here? And how can I maybe address those things and consider those things and talk about those things before something that I don't want to happen happens. And again, that will manifest itself in a variety of ways depending upon who you are.
Of course. And it's almost as if the lies that he's telling to others are the lies that he's telling to himself. That this is really a journey of self-actualization, that he needs to confront the person that he actually is more than all the chaos that's around him. And that's why there's so much chaos, because he's not admitting that there's things he can't do, that there is a limitation to how much he can give. And he's just it's essentially the giving tree, this story to some degree.
Mm, mm,
And we are all that. We have priorities, and when we don't take care of ourselves, you can't take care of somebody else. And if you're broken, you can't fix somebody else. It's not going to work that way. And if you create a strong foundation, you can help the ones around you so much more effectively, so much
mm.
deeper than you can if it's a surface level like he's doing. Just cold water and salt, switch that around, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's the level of care that he's able to give, because
Mhm.
he's not able to give himself. At least that's how I was taking the material.
That's beautiful. No, I love that. I love that. And I love I love the Giving Tree. It's always been a book for whatever reason since a young kid that always got me. And I think understandably so. There is something I think beautiful about someone who is sacrificial in the way that they live their life and the way that they give themselves to others. But there's also a danger in that, and I think a need to not destroy yourself in an effort to be everything for everyone else. When you don't have someone to take care of you or the ability to take care of yourself.
Right. Well, I think there's two reactions to that story in particular. There's people that see it as an incredibly sad story where
Mm.
it's tragic because you gave till there was nothing left, and you were completely used at that point, and you're depleted of anything you could give to the world. Or there's somebody who sees it as a very happy story, that this
Mm.
person gave their life and they were of service in that. To me, I'm kind of on the one before, where it's just,
Mm.
I think there's a tragedy in giving
Yeah.
yourself over. You have to save room for yourself. And it's not selfishness to me. It is something that it's by taking care of yourself. I'm not helping my kids if I
Right.
don't allow myself to be present. And I can't be present if I'm unwell. So I have
Yeah.
to try to take care of myself to be there for them. And that's just
And
important.
I think it's that recognition too. And again, one of the main themes that I was constantly talking to all my collaborators about, ensuring that we were, when we were setting the camera, when we were setting the light, when we were, mixing the audio, that we were in some way allowing this theme to feed into that, which is we all need grace. We all make
Mhm.
mistakes and we all need grace. And so I like, we can camp on the Giving Tree for so long. It's just so perfect. I think it would be unrealistic to believe that anyone can give without any consequences, even to those that they're giving to, right? Obviously, that's going to
Right.
wear on you. But if you want to give as well as you want to give, if you want to be of service, if you want to serve and sacrifice for people, then you also need to be filled. Otherwise, the parent, I'm a parent as well. I will not be able to love my child in all the ways that I want to love them if I'm not being allowed to be a human, if I'm not allowed to receive grace as well, if I'm not
Yeah.
allowed to admit that I fall short, that I make mistakes, because then I start to believe that I'm something I'm not, that I'm beyond human, that I'm superhuman in some way.
Yeah.
And I think it's oftentimes too easy when looking at medical professionals or anyone kind of who is in a position of authority to believe that they are other, that they are somehow more super, more capable, more like, no, they are just as human as you and I.
Yep.
And I think there's a variety of reasons why we put that on them, but it doesn't do them any favors, and I don't think it does us any favors to view them in that way.
And you brought up the pit before, and I hear a lot of people getting upset about that show because the inaccuracies and that they're not wearing masks at certain part that they shouldn't, and all those kinds of things. And if you're paying attention and dialed into those elements of it, to me, you're missing the point, which is really, it's more about the emotional cost that it takes to be in this kind of work, which I think is what your film was about as well. It's that it's not about is the dosage of the medication the thing you would be doing? I don't know how accurate that is. It feels right to me in this film, but I'm a layman. I know nothing about this stuff. So don't care. It could be completely wrong. It feels right to me. I don't rub up against it. And I think that's for the film. How are you getting this out to the world now?
Yeah. So it's a unique time for independent films. And one of the things that we've learned in our own experience, as well as just a lot of the other indie filmmakers that I'm connected to, is there are fewer and fewer dependable avenues for indie films to walk down to find a large distribution release plan. And so there was a season in which we were collaborating with a sales agency and reaching out to distributors. And we had a few offers, but none of them just seemed to make sense. None of them were what we were hoping for, or were going to allow for the reach and the spread that we thought this film could and should have. And so about 6 months ago, we kind of made the decision to go the self-distribution route, for lack of a better term. And in a lot of ways, the moment that we made that decision, so many really cool and interesting doors started to open up. We started to go, okay, well, who do we think one of the primary audiences of this film really is, and how can we connect to them more directly? So we just started reaching out to a lot of nursing organizations and healthcare organizations, saying, hey, we made this film. We made this film in an effort to honor the work that those that you represent are doing, to shine a light on the difficulties that they can endure, and to hopefully allow the world at large to better understand what it is that you're sacrificing and enduring day in and day out. And the response has been really beautiful. And so we kind of September, we just locked this in September 29th. We are launching a pre-sale of the film on Kickstarter, and kind of using Kickstarter as a pre-sale platform rather than a place to really raise any more funds to make the film, because the film was obviously done and ready to be seen by the world. And so the plan is kind of starting in the beginning of August to really, in earnest, start to market it out to the world, and then launch that in the end of September. And they'll have a month-long run. And we feel really excited and confident that will do well, and ultimately use some of those funds to propel us on to some larger distribution plans, planning to do some screenings in select cities, especially if we're able to make connections with nursing organizations that are based in New York or Chicago or LA. Kind of have them host some screens in those particular areas. And yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, the sky's the limit, kind of see where it will take us. The first window of release will be kind of the pre-sale there on Kickstarter, starting on September 29th.
That's fantastic. What's the name for the Kickstarter so we can point people in that direction?
Yeah, so it's a Do No Harm movie. That'll be the easiest way to.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, exactly. We like to keep things simple.
I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes for people to support this, because this is legitimately the reason that I still do this podcast. I've been doing it for about 10 years now. And it's best job I ever had was working in a video store. can't support a family on that wage, and video stores don't exist anymore pretty much. So I'm out of luck. I had to grow up and get a day job. But with that, I get to still through this recommend films to people and recommend something that may be on the back shelf in the back of the room somewhere, something that didn't have 45 copies of it brought in every Tuesday. So this is one I recommend to people. They go check out because it's a good movie, man. This is the kind of thing that deserves to have a light shined on it. So congratulations, man. You got a special one.
Oh, that means the world. Thank you so much. And it's obviously very clear, even just looking at the Blu-ray shelf behind you, that you are a genuine film fan. And there are kind of two individuals that I love talking to about this film in particular. One of them are anyone in healthcare.
Of course.
And the other one is just, film fans and film nerds, because that is me in my heart of hearts. If the film is resonating with people that are a little bit like me, that means I've done something that the past me, the one that kind of came up with this idea 8 years ago, would be very proud of. So it means the world hearing that, brother. Thank you.
Well, I'll leave you with this. A lot of the films I love, there's genre movies were kind of the things that made me fall in love with movies in the first place, horror films. And it was just that there would be something that I would see that I had never seen before. And that kind of informed all of the love of film that's how I discovered Hitchcock. It's how I discovered Truffaut. It was all these sort of people talking about the things that got them to where they were, reading the liner notes, so to speak, of the artist that got them there. Yeah. And so to me, though, this is one of those ones that I can point to and say, without a caveat of like, look, you need to watch this movie because there's going to be a really cool special effect 45 minutes into it. The acting's going to be a little bit goofy. There's going to be some things that you're going to rub up against, but if you just let go of it, again, that asterisk thing, I can recommend this without any asterisks. This is just a good movie. This is a movie that I can watch with my wife. I can watch with my mom. I can watch with my kid. And there's not many of those out there that none of us will be insulted. None of us will be placated to or condescended to. And we'll all have you'll all get something out of it that'll be different and it'll inspire a conversation, I think.
Awesome. That means the world, brother. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Good luck. And when would you like this to air?
Totally. So we will begin our kind of marketing for the Kickstarter campaign on August 11th. So our website, do-no-harm-movie.com will go live that day. Our Kickstarter page will go live that day for people to sign up to be notified. Again, the campaign actually launches on the 29th of September, but you can sign up to get notified starting on August 11th. So any date, honestly, after that would be very helpful, because that will just direct people that direction. They can sign up to be notified. And obviously, the more people that are signing up to get notified, the clear idea we'll have of the kind of response we'll get on the campaign, and that'll help to dial in the specific number that we're aiming for, so on and so forth. So yeah, that would be amazing. And then obviously I'll be able to send both of those sites to you, and you can post those in the show notes and things like that.
Yeah, just send those over. I'll make sure I put them in there. And yeah, congrats, man. In all seriousness, you got a good one here, man. You should be proud. Okay. You can show this to your students without being embarrassed, which is that's got to be I would imagine as a 50-year-old and seeing 20-year-olds in front of me showing my art to them would be absolutely unnerving, probably more than any other audience.
Yeah, it was very funny because, especially before the film was made, I would talk about this film that I was working on. And so they were all well aware of this film that I'd been working on. And so the day that it was completed and I was able to go, do you guys want to see it? I was sweating bullets because I'm like, please don't think this is horrible, because it's like I'm the one up here teaching you how to make films, and if you think this is garbage trash, then your level of belief in what I'm having to say will completely plummet. So it was very rewarding to have them go, oh, well, that was good. It's like,
he actually knows what he's talking about. That's good.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Because I think we've all had a professor that at some point you thought, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. I'm pretty sure that's wrong. So I think you can stand behind this one in confidence in front of the kids. So
good to know.
Time enough to figure you out. Time enough to write this down. Wish me luck, give me hope. always crack.